I never expected this Thanksgiving to be different from the others. The same forced smiles, the same shallow conversations, the same unspoken resentment. But this year, things took a turn I never saw coming. As I zipped up my suitcase, I let out a deep sigh. My reflection in the mirror stared back at me. Riley Donovan, 34 years old, senior research analyst at a biotech firm, earning a solid six-figure salary, financially independent, alone. Every year, my family gathered at an extravagant location for Thanksgiving, all expenses covered by my grandfather, Victor Donovan. This year's destination? The Grand Solera, a five-star resort in Miami. Elegant, historic, absurdly expensive. It was tradition one that had never sat well with me. My grandfather, a self-made billionaire, had always encouraged me to be independent. "Stand on your own feet, Riley," he'd say, and I had. Unlike my sister, Jenna, who had built her entire life on the foundation of his financial support. Jenna was 3 years younger than me, a former flight attendant turned full-time socialite. Her Instagram was a never-ending slideshow of designer bags, extravagant vacations, and Michelin-starred meals. But behind the filters, her life was a house of cards held up by my grandfather's generosity. My parents, Graham and Linda, were no different. They lived in a sprawling retirement community in Palm Beach, their lifestyle entirely funded by my grandfather's investments. Meanwhile, I had put myself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs, built a career, and bought my own apartment in Chicago. I never asked for help, never wanted it, and they had never offered it. Even so, every year I attended these family gatherings, because despite everything, I still wanted to believe in family. This year would be my last mistake. The moment I stepped into the lobby of the Grand Solera, I sensed something was off. The opulent chandeliers sparkled overhead, and the scent of fresh-cut roses filled the air. But there was a tension in the space, a subtle shift in the atmosphere. I spotted my parents in a quiet corner, whispering to each other. They avoided my gaze. My stomach tightened. At the front desk, the receptionist gave me a polite but nervous smile. "Miss Donovan, I'm sorry, but I can't find your reservation." My brows furrowed. There must be a mistake. My grandfather made all the bookings. The receptionist typed furiously, checking the system again. "I see the reservations for your family members, but not for you." Before I could respond, the sharp click of heels echoed across the marble floor. I turned to see Jenna approaching, her platinum blonde hair perfectly styled, a Cartier watch gleaming on her wrist. A smug smile tugged at her lips. "Oh, Riley, you made it," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. But there's been a little misunderstanding. My grip tightened on my suitcase. "What kind of misunderstanding?" Jenna shrugged dramatically. "Well, you're independent now, aren't you? So I figured you could book your own room." Silence filled the lobby. The receptionist's expression flickered with discomfort. Other guests glanced over, sensing the tension. Jenna continued, her voice lilting with mock sympathy. "We only booked rooms for our family, me, Jason, and Ava, of course, and Mom and Dad. You understand, right?" Her words were a dagger to the chest. I forced a steady breath. "I see," I said calmly. "Then I'll leave." Her smug expression faltered for a second. Without another word, I pulled out my phone, booked a taxi, and turned on my heel. "Wait," Jenna called, but I didn't stop. My parents stood frozen, their eyes fixed on the floor. Not a single word of protest. The taxi pulled up moments later. As I slid into the back seat, I glanced once more at the grand entrance of the hotel. Palm trees swayed in the warm breeze. Through the glass doors, I saw my 7-year-old niece, Ava, peeking out, confusion in her innocent eyes. Every year, I brought her a gift. This time, a pearl bracelet, still wrapped in my suitcase. As the car pulled away, a strange sense of liberation washed over me. I had spent years trying to belong to a family that had never truly accepted me. Now, I was finally walking away. The moment I reached the airport, my phone buzzed with a flood of missed calls. Jenna. My parents. Jenna's voicemail was laced with desperation. "Riley, are you seriously leaving?" "Ava's been waiting for you!" "She's devastated." "Do you even care about your family?" Then my mother's voice sharp, irritated. "Riley, don't be dramatic. You could have just booked your own room." It's not a big deal. Why are you making this about you? And finally, my father's cold, matter-of-fact tone. Jenna has a family. You don't. Try to be more understanding. I stared at the phone, my grip tightening. They had finally said it out loud. I had never been part of their real family. Just as I was about to turn my phone off, a new message popped up. From grandfather, I'm proud of your decision. I understand everything. A lump formed in my throat. For the first time in years, someone had chosen me. The plane back to Chicago was packed with holiday travelers, families laughing, couples sharing quiet conversations. I sat by the window, staring at the city lights below as we took off. My phone was still buzzing, but I ignored it. I had expected the backlash, but not this fast. Jenna had called 16 times. My parents had sent a flurry of emails, ranging from condescending to outright desperate. Mom, we could have found another room, Riley. But you overreacted. You always do. Dad, your sister has a child. A real family. You don't. Try to be less selfish. And then Jenna's messages, laced with panic. Jenna, you have no idea how humiliating this is. Everyone saw you storm out. Ava was looking forward to seeing you, and now she's crying. Thanks for ruining Thanksgiving. Jenna, my friends are coming over for dinner. How am I supposed to explain this? People are asking where you are. That one made me pause. She wasn't upset because I left. She was upset because it ruined her image. I let out a dry laugh, shaking my head. Then another email from my grandfather. Grandfather, the decision has been made. They will learn from this. His words felt final, chilling. I reread them, trying to understand what he meant. I landed in Chicago close to midnight. The airport was quieter now, mostly business travelers and people rushing home. The cold air hit me the moment I stepped outside, a stark contrast to Miami's warmth. By the time I reached my apartment, exhaustion settled deep into my bones. I tossed my suitcase aside, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto the couch. For the first time in years, I wasn't spending Thanksgiving with my family. And yet, I felt peaceful. I made myself tea, something to ground me. Steam curled into the air as I curled up on the couch. The silence was comforting. No fake smiles, no passive-aggressive comments, just me. Then my phone rang. Again, I groaned, ready to ignore it until I saw the caller ID grandfather. I hesitated for a second before answering. Hey, Grandpa. His voice was steady, but there was an edge to it. You did well, Riley, I exhaled. It didn't feel like it. They showed their true colors, he said simply. It was long overdue, I swallowed. You knew this would happen, didn't you? There was a pause. I had my suspicions, but now there's no doubt. Something in his tone made my stomach twist. What do you mean? I'm cutting them off. My heart nearly stopped. Wait, what? I've transferred all financial assets under a new trust. Effective immediately, your parents and Jenna will no longer receive a dime from me. The room spun. I set my tea down, gripping my phone tighter. Grandpa, that's drastic. No, it's necessary. His voice was calm but firm. I won't reward entitlement any longer. I wanted to believe they could change, but they've proven otherwise. I sat back, trying to process what this meant. My parents' luxury retirement? Gone. Jenna's designer lifestyle? Over. The carefully curated image she projected online? Crumbling. They're going to lose their minds, I murmured. They already have, he said dryly. Check your phone. I pulled it away from my ear, checking my notifications. 17 new messages. Jenna, what did you do? Mom, he's lost it. Riley, you have to fix this. Dad, you can't just let him do this. You know what this means for us. I closed my eyes. The weight of it all pressed against my chest. This isn't about me fixing anything, I said finally. They made their choices. Grandfather let out a small hum of approval. Good, then you understand. A beat of silence stretched between us before he spoke again. I've rewritten my will, Riley, my breath caught. What? You're the only one who understands responsibility, the only one who doesn't take my help for granted, he exhaled. Everything will go to you. I gripped the phone, my pulse hammering. Grandpa, I never wanted, I know, he said gently. And that's exactly why you deserve it. I barely slept that night. By morning, my inbox was a war zone. Jenna had called over 30 times, each voicemail more hysterical than the last. Jenna, You have to fix this. ICANT lose everything. Jenna, do you know how much our mortgage is? Or Ava's school tuition? How am I supposed to pay for any of this? Mom, you don't understand, Riley. We have medical bills. Your father and I can't just work at our age. This is cruel. Dad, we trusted Victor to support us. That was the plan. You know that. The plan. Their plan had always been to rely on Grandpa, to never lift a finger, to live in comfort, never worrying about the future. I stared at the messages, feeling nothing. For years, I had been the outsider, the other daughter, the one who had to work for everything while Jenna had been handed the world. And now, that world was collapsing. I poured myself another cup of tea and took a slow sip. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. I felt free. By noon, my phone had become a battlefield. The messages from Jenna and my parents kept coming desperate, panicked, furious. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I focused on the simple, steady rhythm of my morning. Shower, breakfast, coffee, things I usually rush through without thought. But today, I took my time. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't owe my family anything. They had made that painfully clear. I checked my inbox again, half expecting another explosion of emails, but something else caught my attention, a final message from my grandfather. Grandfather, they will either learn or they won't. Either way, it's no longer your burden to carry. I exhaled slowly, his words settling in my chest. Then my doorbell rang. I frowned, setting my coffee down. No one ever just showed up at my place. When I opened the door, my stomach clenched. Jenna. She looked nothing like the picture-perfect woman she projected online. Her usual flawless makeup was smudged, and her blonde waves were tangled as if she hadn't slept. For the first time in years, she looked real. Riley, she breathed out, stepping forward. I blocked the doorway. No. She blinked in shock. What? I folded my arms. Whatever you're here for, the answer is no. A flash of anger crossed her face, but she quickly replaced it with a trembling smile. Come on. You're my sister. I raised an eyebrow. That didn't seem to matter when you told me I wasn't real family. Jenna's lips pressed together, but she pushed on. I screwed up, okay? But you don't understand what this means for me. For Ava. I did. It meant no more luxury vacations. No more designer bags. No more private school tuition that let her brag about being an elite mother. It meant living the life I had always lived, one where you had to earn what you had. Her voice cracked. I have nothing left, Riley. My cards are maxed out. Jason is furious. We might lose the house. I don't know what to do. I leaned against the doorframe, letting her words sink in. For years, I'd been cast aside, treated like an afterthought. Now, suddenly, I was useful. I tilted my head. What do you expect me to do? Jenna's expression wavered. She hadn't actually thought that far. Finally, she whispered, Talk to Grandpa. I let out a sharp laugh. You think after everything, I can just undo his decision? You have influence over him, she snapped, frustration breaking through. He listens to you. If you just, Jenna, I cut in, voice steady. He made his choice because of you. Because of how you treated me. Do you get that? She swallowed, eyes glistening. I wasn't thinking. I sighed, stepping back. That's the problem, isn't it? You never thought about anything. You just expected money to be there. Jenna's breath hitched. She knew I was right. Still, she tried one last time. Please, Riley, Ava. I shook my head. Don't use her. That's not fair. A tear finally spilled over, streaking her cheek. Then what am I supposed to do? She whispered. I met her gaze. Figure it out. And then I closed the door. The silence after Jenna left was heavier than I expected. I wasn't proud of shutting her out, but I wasn't guilty either. I sat back on the couch, running a hand through my hair. My heart was still racing, adrenaline pumping through me. Jenna had never needed me before, never even looked at me as someone who could help. And now, I was the only one left standing. I turned my phone off, needing a break from the chaos. Instead, I focused on the simple, steady things, cleaning my kitchen, answering work emails, reading over the latest research report for my job. Life kept moving forward. Until later that evening when my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Jason, Jenna's husband. I hesitated before picking up. Hello? A heavy sigh. Riley. His voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. I leaned against the counter. I don't think we do. He let out a humorless chuckle. Jenna is a wreck. She told me she went to see you. She did. Another pause. And you just shut the door on her? She shut the door on me a long time ago, I said evenly. Jason exhaled sharply. Listen, I know she's made mistakes, but we're in a really bad place right now. The mortgage, the school fees, the car payments, it's all falling apart. I closed my eyes. I don't know what you want from me. I want you to fix this, he snapped. Talk to your grandfather. Get him to undo whatever the hell he did. I let out a slow breath, keeping my voice calm. Jason, what do you do for work? He hesitated. I have investments. I almost laughed. No, Grandpa had investments. You just lived off them. Silence, I continued. This wasn't my decision. Grandpa cut you all off because you never respected what he gave you. Jason's voice dropped. So that's it? You're just gonna watch us lose everything? I swallowed. Maybe it's time you learn what it feels like to stand on your own feet. He cursed under his breath, then hung up. I stared at my phone, gripping it tightly. This wasn't over. The next morning, I woke up to an email from my mother. It wasn't like the others. No guilt-tripping, no fake concern. Just one line. Your father hasn't slept in 2 days. I hope you're happy. I rubbed my temples, closing my eyes. They still didn't get it. This wasn't my doing. It was theirs. But as much as I tried to shake it off, something about that email sat uncomfortably in my chest. I didn't want to fix them, but I also didn't want to watch them break. I wasn't sure which was worse. I barely made it through my morning routine before the next wave of messages hit. Jenna had gone quiet, but my parents? Not a chance. Mom, your father hasn't eaten since yesterday. Do you even care? Dad, you're being cruel, Riley. We're your parents. I sighed, tossing my phone onto the counter. The guilt tactics were ramping up. I could see the pattern now: first outrage, then blame, and now emotional manipulation. It wasn't working, but that didn't mean it didn't sting. I distracted myself with work, poring over research reports and responding to emails. For hours, I managed to push it all aside, until I got another call from Grandpa. I exhaled sharply before answering. Hey, you've been handling this well, he said, his voice steady. Better than I expected. I let out a dry laugh. That makes one of us, he chuckled. They'll keep pushing, but you don't owe them anything, Riley. I know. I paused, rubbing my temple. But it's hard to ignore. There was a brief silence before he spoke again. They're coming to see me. My stomach twisted. Who? Your parents? Of course. They want to talk, he continued. To plead their case, I shut my eyes. And what are you going to do? Listen! His voice was calm, unreadable. Then I'll decide. I hesitated. Do you want me there? No. His answer was immediate. This is their mess. They need to face it alone. I swallowed. Okay. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, feeling an unease settle over me. They weren't going to back down, and I wasn't sure I wanted them to. 2 days passed with silence. It was unnerving. No calls, no emails, no messages. Just when I started to think they'd finally accepted reality, I got a text from Jenna. Jenna, they're back. Call me. I debated ignoring it. But curiosity got the better of me. I dialed. She picked up immediately. Riley. What happened? She hesitated. They lost it. Mom was crying. Dad was furious. Grandpa wouldn't budge. I exhaled, my chest tightening. Did they actually think they could change his mind? Of course they did, she muttered. They still think they deserve everything. I leaned against the counter, gripping my phone. And now? Jenna hesitated. They're panicking. The retirement home deposit? Gone. They don't have the money to cover medical insurance. They don't even have enough savings to last 6 months. I closed my eyes. I had known this would happen, but hearing it out loud made it real. For so long, my parents had lived in a bubble of comfort. They never planned for the future because they never had to. Now that safety net was gone. They don't know what to do, Jenna admitted. And honestly, neither do I. I took a slow breath. Are you finally seeing the problem? She let out a bitter laugh. Oh, I see it. Too late. But yeah. I leaned against the counter, rubbing my forehead. Jenna, what do you want from me? She hesitated again. I don't know, she sighed. I think they're really scared this time. I didn't respond right away, because for the first time, I wasn't sure how I felt about that. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept circling back to my parents, to their panic, their fear. They had never worried before, never needed to, and now they were unraveling. I wasn't sure if I should feel satisfaction or guilt. Maybe both. The next morning, I got a text from Grandpa. Grandfather, they've made their bed. Now they have to lie in it. I stared at those words for a long time. He was right. But that didn't mean it was easy. By midday, Jenna called again. I almost ignored it, but something in me said to pick up. What? I answered flatly. She sighed. They're asking about you, I frowned. What do you mean? They keep wondering if you could convince Grandpa to reconsider, she admitted. They won't ask you directly, but it's obvious. I clenched my jaw. That's not happening. I know, Jenna said quickly. But, Riley, they don't know how to do this. They've never had to. I closed my eyes. And whose fault is that? She didn't answer. I let out a slow breath. I don't want them to suffer, Jenna. But I also don't think helping them fixes anything. Jenna was quiet for a long moment. So what do we do? I hesitated before saying, we let them figure it out. Jenna inhaled sharply. That's cruel. I swallowed the lump in my throat. No, it's reality. For years, they had refused to see it. Now, they had no choice. The next day, I got an email from my mother. Not a guilt trip, not a demand, just a question, how did you do it? I read it twice, my pulse kicking up. For the first time, she wasn't telling me what to do. She was asking. I exhaled. Maybe, just maybe, they were starting to understand. I stared at my mother's email for a long time. How did you do it? It was the first real question she had ever asked me. The first time she had acknowledged that I had built my own life. That maybe, just maybe, I had done something right. I could have ignored it. But I didn't. I took a deep breath and typed a response. I worked. I saved. I lived within my means. I made decisions based on what I could afford, not what looked good to other people. I hesitated, then added, you can still do that too. I hit send and shut my laptop. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel angry, just drained. A day passed, then two, no calls, no emails, no desperate texts. For the first time since Thanksgiving, my family had gone completely silent. And that was somehow worse. I tried to focus on work, but the quiet pressed down on me. My mind kept circling back to that email. Had they finally given up? Were they too ashamed to respond? Or had things gotten worse? I didn't know which answer I wanted. On the third day, Jenna showed up at my door. Again. This time, she didn't look desperate, just tired. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. She sighed. Can we just talk? I studied her for a moment, then stepped aside. 5 minutes. Jenna walked in, glancing around. Your place is nice. I crossed my arms. What do you want, Jenna? She exhaled. Mom and Dad are different. I raised an eyebrow. Different how? She sat down on my couch, rubbing her hands together. They're scared. Not just about money, but about everything. For the first time in their lives, they don't have control. I leaned against the counter. And? Jenna swallowed. I think it's breaking them. I let her words sink in. My parents had spent their entire lives pretending they were better than everyone else, living in a bubble of privilege and security. Now, for the first time, they were vulnerable. And they had no idea how to handle it. Dad tried to get a job, Jenna admitted, at a real estate office. They turned him down. I blinked. Wait, he actually applied for a job? She nodded. He didn't tell them his age at first. When they found out, they said he wasn't a good fit. I let out a slow breath. I had never seen my father work for anything in his life. The fact that he had even tried meant things were worse than I thought. Jenna looked up at me. They're talking about selling the house. I stared at her. Seriously? She nodded. They can't afford it anymore. They've been trying to negotiate with the retirement community, but without Grandpa's money. She trailed off. I crossed my arms. And what do they want from me? Jenna hesitated. Nothing. I frowned. That's the thing, she said quietly. For the first time, They're not asking for anything. Not from you. Not from Grandpa. They're just lost. I didn't know how to respond to that, because a part of me wanted them to ask, wanted them to admit they had been wrong. But maybe their silence was an admission. Jenna rubbed her temples. I don't think they ever really thought about what would happen if the money stopped. I swallowed. And you? What are you doing? Jenna let out a humorless laugh. I'm looking for a job too. Jason and I are selling the house. Ava's already transferring to public school. She glanced at me. I don't have a choice anymore. For the first time in our lives, Jenna and I were standing on the same ground. I wasn't sure how I felt about that. That night, I thought about calling Grandpa, but I didn't. Because I knew what he would say. They need to learn. And they were. Maybe not in the way I had imagined. Maybe not in some grand dramatic apology. But in the quiet moments when they realized there was no safety net, no easy fix, no one to bail them out. I wasn't sure if that made me feel better or worse. A week passed, then another. Jenna sent occasional updates, but nothing dramatic. My parents had listed their house. They were still struggling to find jobs. They had cut down their expenses for the first time in decades. And they hadn't reached out to me, not once. Until one night when I got a single email from my mother. Not long, not desperate. Just this, we're figuring it out. I stared at those words for a long time. Then, for the first time in years, I sent a message back. Good. Winter faded into spring, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't dreading my family. The emails from my mother had slowed to a trickle. The last one was a few sentences. Nothing dramatic, just an update on selling the house. It's finally happening. We close next month. The new place is smaller, but it will do. No complaints, no guilt trips, just reality. Jenna had stopped asking for favors. She was busy looking for work, juggling Ava's school transition, and figuring out life without an unlimited credit card. Even my father had gone quiet. It was strange. For years, they had filled my life with noise demands, expectations, criticism, and now, silence, but not the heavy, crushing kind. A lighter one, a silence that didn't feel like being ignored, but like being left alone, and that was something I had never been given before. One afternoon, I got a call from Grandpa. "You've been quiet," he said. I smiled slightly. "So have they?" He let out a soft chuckle. "Noticed that, did you?" I leaned back in my chair. "I don't think they know how to talk to me now." "Good," he said simply. I laughed. "Not exactly warm and fuzzy, Grandpa." He sighed. "Riley, you don't build respect overnight. It's earned. Over time. And for the first time in their lives, they're earning something. Even if it's just the right to talk to you again." I hesitated. "Do you think they'll change?" Another pause. "Then I think they'll adapt." That was probably the best answer I was going to get. And honestly, it was enough. By summer, my parents had moved into their new home. Jenna had found a job nothing glamorous, just a basic office role. She complained at first, but eventually, the complaints turned into stories. Office drama, annoying coworkers, small victories, real-life things. Ava was doing fine in public school. She had joined a soccer team, and Jenna was slowly getting used to the fact that she couldn't buy her way into the elite mom circle anymore. And my father? He had taken a job at a car dealership. That one shocked me the most. But Jenna had been the one to tell me, voice laced with something unfamiliar, pride. "He's actually working," she had said. "I never thought I'd see the day. Neither had I." I didn't see them that year for Thanksgiving. Jenna invited me, but there was no pressure, no expectation. And for the first time, I didn't feel obligated to go. Instead, I spent the holiday in Chicago cooking a small dinner for myself. No fancy resort. No forced conversations. Just me. And it was peaceful. A few days later, I got a text from Jenna. "Jenna?" Ava asked about you at dinner. "She misses you." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Me, tell her I'll visit soon, and I meant it. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. For the first time in my life, I was choosing my family, and that made all the difference. "Story 2, I said, a family meal. "Next week's wedding excites me." My sister chuckled. "What?" "It's already finished." I was shown my Mills phone. An image of the wedding was present. My sister grinned. I'm sorry. I gave you the incorrect date, haha. I left without saying anything. However, it was them who felt remorse. The living room of Elizabeth Morrison's home was illuminated by gentle sunlight that seeped through the swaying trees in a peaceful residential area in the Boston suburbs. Liz, whose real name was Elizabeth, was sitting in a windowsill chair looking out at her garden's vibrant blooms. Her hair was shoulder length. It was gradually reverting to its initial condition, but with part of its previous fullness gone. Liz took a deep breath and felt the warmth of her coffee cup in both hands. She felt as though she was living a second life every day. The stillness was broken by the ringtone on her smartphone. The name of her mother came up on the screen. How are you, Liz? Tonight, are you prepared for dinner? There was a trace of stress in Martha's normally pleasant voice. Liz said, Yes, I'm ready, with a smile. You're absolutely correct. Ashley and Jason are also coming, and Dad promised to bring wine. Jason's parents have also been invited. Martha's voice lifted a bit. Liz reassured her, Don't worry, Thomas and Carol are very proper people. Jason's parents are really kind individuals. Carol is always worried about my health, and Thomas in particular has expressed interest in my job. Liz hung up the phone and went to her home office. The folder named Gift for the Hamiltons appeared on her computer screen. After verifying details of a real estate property and bank transfer arrangements, she grinned contentedly. Just then, a recollection from 2 years earlier sprung to life. The white walls of the hospital room and the steady drip of a fourth. Liz was pale, and her hair had fallen out as she lay in bed. Ashley stood in the doorway, obviously uneasy, while Martha and George waited anxiously in the corner. Ashley murmured, Get well soon, but her gaze kept straying to the wall clock. However, I must leave immediately. Mike, Ashley, and I are going on a date, Martha reprimanded. Liz is going through a tough moment. Ashley gave a shrug. I also have my own life. I wish you would quit talking about Liz's sickness all the time. Liz dismissed the recollection with a shake of her head. Ashley has also matured, she said to herself in a whisper. She is entitled to happiness. Dr. Grayson, who was seated across from Liz, recalled something else. Elizabeth. Well done. You did well on the test. You're in remission, I can say. Liz's eyes filled with tears. Still, full healing will require time. You will gradually regain your strength. Above all, make time for the people you care about. This is an excellent time to think about what life is really about. Liz got to her feet and looked out the window. Placing her palm on her chest, she relished the sensation of life. She then carefully traced the date, April 15th, with her finger after picking up Ashley's wedding invitation. Seeing my sister on her special day is really lovely. Grinning, she opened her closet. Liz pulled out a modestly nice pale blue dress. She reasoned that this wouldn't attract much notice during Ashley's wedding. On her sister's special day, she didn't want to take center stage. Liz's phone rang. Jason was the one. Liz, hello? I'm excited for tonight's meal. By the way, I think the Brooklyn property you told me about is great. For now, I'm not telling Ashley about it. Liz grinned. I'm happy you enjoyed it. You may leave the rest of the process to me. That property is ideal. To keep the surprise intact, let's not discuss real estate throughout dinner tonight. In the large dining room of the Morrison residence, Jason thanked him and hung up on Sunday night. There were flowers and excellent china on the table, along with crystal cups of deep red wine. Liz was seated with Ashley and Jason, her parents, Martha and George, and Jason's parents, Thomas and Carol Hamilton. As she brought in a silver plate filled with roast meat, Martha made a pleased announcement. One of Liz's favorite dishes is today's roast beef. When she was ill, she stated, I want to eat Mom's roast beef when I get better. Liz Elizabeth received a warm grin from Thomas Hamilton. Your recuperation is just amazing. Our family also like it a lot. Jason often praises your bravery. Liz gave a kind, if rather sheepish, response. Thomas, thank you. This event taught me a lot, most notably the value of spending time with family. Ashley, wearing gaudy jewelry, squirmed uneasily in her chair. As though she wanted to be the focus of attention, she spoke louder. Hello, everyone! Do you not want to know what we have planned for our honeymoon? Bali is our destination of choice. As the dinner went on and the discussion flowed, Liz smiled warmly and remarked, I'm really looking forward to the wedding next week. Seeing my sister on her special day makes me very pleased, and my health has improved. The table suddenly became quiet. Ashley looked perplexed and set down her fork. The already completed wedding. She chuckled a little. What? Liz said, perplexed. However, didn't the invitation state April 15th? She accessed a picture of the saved invitation after removing her smartphone from her purse. It's the old invitation, I see. Ashley gave a shrug. At the last minute, we moved it to last weekend. I desired a modest ceremony. Liz felt her face drain of blood. However, am I not family? Carol, Jason's mother, interrupted. The ceremony was quite beautiful. She pulled out her phone. I have photos, you see. Unaware of the circumstances, Carol was ready to share the pictures when Ashley's expression briefly went into terror. Liz looked at Carol's phone screen slowly. Yes, there were pictures from the wedding. A lawn ceremony, a white tent, a floral altar, and a wedding in the classic American manner. Ashley wearing a white dress. Parents grinning. Jason's entire family. A picture of pals together. But there was no sign of Liz. As Carol flipped through the pictures, Liz kept an eye on her hand. She was absent from every picture. What's going on, Ashley? Liz's tone faltered. How come I was the only one who was unaware? Not even an invitation. Ashley smiled and said softly, I must have given you the incorrect date. Apologies. Reaching for her wine glass, she took a drink. Lately, I've been rather busy. Jason stared at his sister-in-law, Liz, with an awkward and contrite expression. I believed that invitations had been sent. I sincerely apologize. Martha gave Ashley a glance. Why would you act in this manner? Ashley answered, a little irritated. Isn't that not a huge deal? Liz felt exhausted and ill. During the ceremony, do you think everyone would be fawning over her? It was my day. Liz felt her face drain of blood. Across the table, Ashley's parents were staring at her with bewildered looks. Carol and Thomas were astounded too. Liz got up slowly and just muttered, I see. She heard Ashley say, Aren't you being a bit too sensitive? Before she left the dining room without saying anything else. It's a wedding. The most wonderful day of my life. Liz made her way to the front entrance, where everything had to be flawless. Thomas's harsh, low voice was also audible to her. Ashley, this type of conduct is unacceptable to me. Family is my top priority. Liz stepped outside, climbed into her vehicle, and inhaled deeply, refusing to cry. She pulled out her phone and launched the app for her bank. She hit the cancel button after displaying a $100,000 transfer reservation that was saved under Ashley and Jason's new house gift. A screen for confirmation came up. After a brief pause, Liz clicked the confirm button. The notice appeared on the screen. The transfer has been canceled. She turned on the car's engine. Liz sat calmly but resolutely in front of her computer the following morning. She opened a draft of an email and entered the subject line to Joseph about the Brookline property. I've made the decision to cancel the Hamilton couple's reservation at the property. My assistance plans have changed as a result of family circumstances. I'm sorry, but could you kindly give it to other customers? Once the transmit button has been pressed, Liz grabbed her cell phone and dialed. It's Liz, Helen. Regarding the Hamilton couple specifically, Ashley and Jason, I have a message for the Boston area real estate agent network. Liz wrote on her notepad and went on. Indeed, precisely. I would like them to be taken care of if they are looking for properties. Is being processed or sold at this time. 3 months is the duration. After giving it some thought, she continued, No, until they find another way. This is a personal matter. Liz hung up and looked out the window. Instead of feeling content, she felt depressed. She said, This hurts more than when I was sick, when Liz's phone rang that afternoon. On the screen was Jason's name. After a little pause, Liz responded, I really apologize for yesterday, Liz. Jason sounded honest. I was unaware that you were not invited and that the wedding arrangements had changed. It's not your fault, Jason, Liz gently retorted, but I find it incomprehensible that someone would purposefully leave out her own sister from her wedding, particularly if she had just returned from the edge of death. There was a pause before Jason remarked, "I don't understand either," in a quiet voice. According to Ashley, who I spoke with, Liz's presence would depress the wedding's atmosphere, that Liz's beautiful day would be ruined by everyone's sympathy. His voice was icy. "I see, Liz." Jason quickly added, "I can understand her point, but I don't think that way. My father in particular is unhappy, as is the rest of my family. Above all, he cherishes familial ties." And Liz attempted to cut the talk short, understanding what you've gone through. "You're a nice guy, Jason, but I need more time at the moment." "I get it. I just wanted to let you know about the Brooklyn home we were considering. Tomorrow is when we intend to view it. I'd want to show Ashley." Liz let out a quiet breath. "I understand. I wish you luck." Liz's phone rang the next day. She inhaled deeply before responding. "Liz? What's happening?" There was wrath in Ashley's voice. All of the homes we were considering were abruptly listed as under contract. They were only listed last week. All of them, including real estate brokers, suddenly respond strangely when they hear my name. Liz answered calmly. "The real estate market is subject to fluctuations. Properties are particularly busy in the spring. However, Jason claimed that even the Brookline home you suggested unexpectedly entered the process. What's happening?" Liz gave a succinct response. "I've made the decision to stop participating." "What are you saying?" Ashley's voice became much more elevated. "I was not invited to your wedding, Ashley. You believed that without me, the environment would be better. In the same way, I think you can buy real estate on your own." From the other end came a sudden intake of breath. "No. Are you seeking retribution against me? Why would you do that?" Silently, Liz said, "It's not retaliation. All I'm doing is reevaluating how I spend my time and money. You don't need me. I've come to realize." A week later, the Morrison family gathered in the living room having an urgent family meeting. Ashley and Jason were there, along with Jason's parents, Liz, and her parents. There was anxiety in the air. However, Thomas was the first to speak, holding back his rage. His voice was aristocratic as he started. Having served as a judge for many years, Ashley has witnessed several family conflicts and places a high priority on her own family. "Our family values are violated by your willful exclusion of your sister from the wedding." Ashley tried to protest, but Jason stopped her, which profoundly hurts Jason. "Hold on. Listen, Ashley." After our mortgage application was denied, we looked into it and discovered that Boston real estate brokers were reportedly avoiding us out of respect for your sister. Ashley's expression was one of uncertainty and rage as she gazed at Liz. "Have you done anything? Do you intend to destroy our lives?" Silently, Liz said. "As a wedding present, I had saved up $100,000 for a down payment on your new house. I had acquired a rare property when she pulled out her smartphone and displayed the cancel transfer page. However, it appears that I am no longer required." Martha gave a start. "Liz, you have $100,000. Ashley gasped. $100,000? No, it isn't possible. It's not a falsehood. Liz also provided the history of the transfer reservation cancellation. "I truly hoped that my experience of confronting death would bring you joy. I discovered that the most significant factor is familial ties. However, you choose a different decision." Jason was astonished. He couldn't think of anything to say. Ashley appeared to be experiencing genuine dread for the first time, and her face had gone white. The living room was filled with a strained quiet. At last, Ashley said something. "I had no idea, Liz." Her voice faltered. "You didn't need to know," answered Liz gently. "It was meant to be unexpected." "But why so much money?" Ashley was perplexed. "Considering that you are my sister," Liz gave a straightforward response. "I wanted you to be happy." Carol, Jason's mother, remarked, "I wanted to bless your new beginning in life." "What have you done, Ashley?" Doctors informed Liz that time with loved ones is valuable, and she just returned from the edge of death. Additionally, Thomas had a severe expression on his face as he looked at Ashley. "It appears that you are unaware of the seriousness of what you have done. According to our principles, it is unacceptable to disregard familial ties." "With regret," Martha murmured. "Why?" As she sat next to Ashley. "You have always been important to Liz." Ashley tried to make excuses after realizing how severe the issue was. I really did not want my glitzy wedding to be ruined. I assumed Liz would be the center of attention if she showed there. My special day would become her comeback celebration if the sister who beat cancer showed up. In a chilly tone, Liz's father spoke. Is that your justification? After your sister faced death, you were unable to join in her happiness as she recovered. Jason put his hands over his face. We are unable to find a new residence and are in debt from the wedding expenses. He gave Liz a glance. Did our mortgage application involve you in any way? Liz gave an honest response. Without my portion to the down payment, your application may be impacted if your debt-to-income ratio has changed. Additionally, I advised real estate brokers to avoid interacting with you at this time. Ashley, I expect honesty and family values in my son's spouse, Thomas remarked angrily as he stood up. I must reevaluate your suitability as my son's life mate. Ashley's face became white. What are you saying? Carol put her hand on her husband's shoulder and murmured in a low voice. We'll have to reevaluate the payment we agreed to make for the marriage. Ashley's eyes filled with tears. However, we are officially married already. Thomas's countenance remained grim. My area of expertise is law. Marriage dissolution is difficult but not impossible, particularly when there have been fraudulent acts. After giving Ashley a long look, Jason got up and moved toward the window. Anguish was visible on his face. Ashley, I love you, but I can't imagine this. I couldn't harm my sister in this way. George and Martha sat in silence. They had gloomy expressions on their faces. Liz got to her feet slowly. I don't think we need to carry on this discussion, everyone. She was firm but gentle in her speech. I don't criticize your decisions, Ashley. I simply accept them. You don't need me either. I will not meddle in your affairs. Ashley's voice, however, faltered. Liz grinned. It appears that I am now only an acquaintance rather than your sister. It's okay. I learned many things from facing death. Liz grabbed her purse. Let's wrap up for the day here. Enjoy your meal, everybody. She was on her way to the door. Jason ran to catch up with her. Hold on, Liz. I want to say how much my family appreciates you and how much I admire your bravery, Liz said. Jason, you might need to work on your judgment of people after giving it some thought. She gave a soft smile. That's your life, though. You have an option. Liz opened the door. Liz, please return, Ashley cried. Let's have a conversation. Liz didn't turn around if it had to do with the $100,000. Ashley, this has nothing to do with money. It concerns respect, trust, and the definition of family. After silently shutting the door, she inhaled deeply. Her hair was brushed by the gentle spring breeze outside. Liz grabbed her phone and launched the banking app. She created a brand new transfer process and called it the Cancer Patient Support Foundation donation. She tapped confirm after entering $100,000 in the amount field. Although life is brief, it lasts a lifetime if it is spent on worthwhile endeavors. Gazing up at the sky, Liz whispered. After that, she climbed into her vehicle and headed out to a fresh tomorrow. All of the family members were staring at Ashley as she sat inside the house looking desperate. Thomas, Jason's father, said gravely, Ashley, you lost the most valuable thing in life today. Not $100,000, but genuine familial ties. My daughter has become such a person, Martha remarked, pressing a handkerchief to her tears. For the first time, Ashley appeared to genuinely comprehend the consequences of her behavior. Her eyes brimmed with tears. However, it was too late, possibly too late, to fix what she had damaged. On a Sunday afternoon in the early summer light, in a verdant park in the Boston suburbs, Liz took a seat in the shade on a bench. Her hair had returned to its previous fullness and now hung beyond her shoulders. She had a fountain pen and a little notebook on her lap, and an iced tea from takeout was sitting next to her. Morrison, Elizabeth. Liz noticed a man standing there as she looked up. He had a soft grin and was dressed in casual elegance. Daniel Bradley is my name. I appreciate your time. Liz pointed to the seat next her with a smile. It's my joy. Sit down, please. Daniel seemed a little anxious as he sat on the bench. The narrative of a cancer survivor living a second life. I was very impacted by it. The chapter on family interactions in particular. It resonated. Liz nodded quietly. 6 months after it was released, her book had unexpectedly become a bestseller. Her honest story of overcoming death and mending relationships struck a chord with a lot of people. Liz declared, "I'm prepared for the interview. Regarding the LA, I take it that the Boston Healthy piece focuses on the psychological issues and everyday life of cancer survivors? Indeed. Many readers are curious about what it's like to return to normal life following treatment." Daniel opened his notepad, focusing on the evolution of relationships. Liz's mobile rang. Her countenance clouded a little as she turned to face the TV. "I must take this. Excuse me?" she inquired as she answered the phone. "Helen? What is it? Liz?" Ashley got in touch with us once more. Helen sounded worn out. "This month alone, it's the third time." Liz let out a sigh. "I get it. Take care of it normally." Liz hung up and turned an apologetic face toward Daniel. It was a call for labor. "Let's go back to the interview," Daniel recommended. "Regarding the first query, how has having cancer affected your perspective on life?" Liz looked off into space. "I've stopped worrying about little things and have begun to live my life according to my own principles rather than those of other people." Meanwhile, Ashley stood at the window of a little apartment in downtown Boston. Her face was a mixture of remorse and exhaustion. There was an open laptop and a stack of money on the table. An email with the heading "Final Notice of Divorce Proceedings" appeared on the screen. Thomas came as the door opened, and despite his harsh demeanor, he showed sympathy. "The conversations are ended, Ashley. I am here on behalf of Jason." He gave her a document-filled envelope. "This is the last suggestion." Despite not opening the mail, Ashley accepted it. "Can I see Liz yet, Thomas?" Thomas gave a head shake. "She has made it apparent that she no longer wants to be connected. However, about that $100,000, that is no longer relevant," Thomas said in a chilly tone. "She gave the money to an organization that supports cancer patients. You stole faith from her instead of money." Ashley's eyes were wide open. Over the previous year, her once glitzy life had undergone a significant transformation. The breakdown of her relationships, the divorce from Jason, and the removal of financial assistance from the Hamilton family. She had also lost her reputation in the Boston real estate market. "I was really stupid," she said. Thomas's face relaxed a little. "Everybody makes errors. What matters is your subsequent behavior." Liz's book was read by me, but Ashley turned around. She altered my name. "Anyone may find out. It's me. I haven't won her forgiveness." According to Thomas, forgiveness and relationship restoration are two different things. "You are not hated by her. All she's doing is keeping her distance to preserve her own tranquility." Liz was almost done with her interview. "One last question," Daniel added. "What guidance would you provide people who have experienced strained familial ties?" Liz was careful with her wording. An ideal family relationship doesn't exist, in my opinion. Deep wounds can occasionally cause. It's crucial to remember your own worth and to have the guts to put distance between you and other people when needed. While it's crucial to keep your heart open, she picked up her teacup. "My sister and I no longer have a connection, but I have made new friends, relatives, and survivors who have gone through similar things." Daniel wrote down what she had to say. "I appreciate this fantastic interview." Liz's phone rang just as she was about to head out. Ashley had sent Liz a text message. "Let me at least apologize before I sign the paperwork, even if I might not be able to repay the $100. Or your confidence. Let's get together just once, please." Liz gazed for a while at the message. She then started composing a response to Ashley. "I've moved on already. You ought to follow suit. Don't stress over the $100,000. I made that decision." But Liz stopped and considered. Then she went on. Coffee would be acceptable. Liz's next Tuesday at 11:00 at the Newberry Street Cafe. She hit the submit button, then raised her gaze to the sky. She knew better than anybody that life is brief and uncertain, even though it might not be forgiveness in its fullest sense. Having the guts to take risks is necessary for living a second life. As though affirming herself, Liz murmured to herself. Then she got to her feet and stepped forward again. A cloudless blue stretched as far as the eye could reach in the Boston sky. Story 3, While I was away on business, my sister evicted my 12-year-old daughter from my parents' home. My mother told me we weren't required there when I phoned. They now run the possibility of being homeless as a result of my ceasing to pay their payments. After all these years, I never imagined that I would be standing here once more, gazing at my parents' front door. I'm Bella, and here are the recollections of this household. I've made a lot of effort to forget. My phone is still warm from my mom's sudden call requesting that I come over immediately, and it feels heavy in my pocket. I'm thinking of my 9-year-old daughter Emma, whom I just dropped off at my friend Sarah's house, as my car waits in the driveway behind me. I tried to seem more certain than I did the last time when I informed Emma that it would only take a few hours. 3 years ago, I had a proper conversation with my parents during my grandmother's burial. Prior to it, there was that awful day when I was 18, and my sister Lisa was picked instead of me. As they informed me that they were giving Lisa my college fund for her wedding, I can still picture myself standing right here, tears running down my cheeks. However, I had yelled that it was my education. A proper wedding is necessary for your sister. Firmly, Mom had said. Like everyone else, you are able to take out student loans. I never truly returned after leaving that day. The only person who supported me was my grandma. Although it wasn't the renowned university I had hoped for, she helped me pay for community college, where I worked hard, earned my degree, and started a new life. The ensuing years were a haze of perseverance and minor successes. In my last year of college, I met my ex-husband, Jack. For a while, things appeared ideal after we were married and had Emma. Things remained polite even after our divorce 2 years ago. Emma comes first for both of us, and Jack pays fair alimony. At 36, I'm doing okay now. The rental income from the apartment I purchased with my inheritance from my grandmother, may she rest in peace, is consistent. In addition, I work part-time at Marshall & Associates and receive alimony. I have enough of money to spend with Emma, breathing deeply. At last, I press the doorbell. Anything they desire. I convince myself that I've grown out of my fear of being 18. You came, Bella. I'm surprised by Mom's excitement when she opens the door. She appears older than I recall. She has more wrinkles around her eyes and more gray in her hair. Behind her, Dad tries to grin, but it falls short of his eyes. Emma is where? Mom looks around me and asks. She's at a friend's, so we haven't seen her. One interrupted her and went inside. It was urgent, you claimed. The fragrance of the house is the same. Dad's coffee is mingled with Mom's vanilla air freshener. As they show me to the living area, I see that everything appears a little shabby. The expensive furniture they purchased for Lisa's wedding is getting old. Do you want tea? Mom asks, wringing her hands. Tell me why you called, please, I say, staying upright. Years have passed, and now it's critical. Mom bursts into sobbing that shake my entire body, not the soft cries. I remember from my early years. My gut tightens as Dad wraps his arm around her. At last, he adds, we're going to lose the house. Knowing there's more, I wait. With them, there's always more. Mom starts, your sister and I get that old stomach churn, naturally. It concerns Lisa. She requested that we obtain a business loan for her husband's company, Tom. The residence serves as collateral for us, I'll guess. My boy's flat, I say. Lisa doesn't pay. Dad explains that Tom's business went bankrupt while avoiding eye contact with me. Lisa and the children are having difficulties. We no longer get money from them. We are unable to cover it on our own. They both give me a look like I've gone crazy when I start giggling. Perhaps I have. You referred to me as your abandoned daughter, the person whose education fund you donated to help you escape another dilemma Lisa caused. Mom wipes her eyes and says, we know you're doing well. The rental revenue from your unit. If we weren't desperate, we wouldn't ask. I stand there staring at these people who, since Lisa was pregnant, hardly noticed me during my grandmother's burial, never sent me a wedding invitation, and always preferred my sister above me. I'll give it some thought. I'm just as shocked as they are when I hear myself say it. I had to drive away to pick up Emma. I can't get rid of the sense that I'm going to make the most significant decision of my life or the worst blunder. Nothing would ever be the same again, in either case. Why are you sobbing, Mom? As soon as I picked Emma up from Sarah's place, she inquired. My daughter has always had a keen sense of observation, sometimes too observant. Without even recognizing that I had been sobbing during the journey, I hastily wiped my eyes. I tried to seem casual as I said, "Just thinking about some stuff, sweetie." "In fact, I spent today with your grandparents." Emma's eyes glowed at once. "Really? The ones in the photos? Can I meet them?" She would want to meet them, of course. Even though they had never made the effort to be involved in her life, they were her grandparents. I fought with my thoughts for the following week, sleeping very little and mentally rehearsing every situation that might possibly happen. Sarah informed me over coffee that you're crazy. I acknowledged that perhaps I am, given what they did. Emma, however, deserves the opportunity to get to know her grandparents. To be honest, I could also need this, to confront everything at last. I had to drive back to my parents' place a week later. Emma was jumping enthusiastically in the passenger seat this time. It was an odd reunion. Emma broke the ice by running up and giving them each a hug when Mom started crying again, and Dad simply stood there looking uncomfortable. They were startled, then elated. For a brief time, I noticed sincere happiness in their eyes, the same type of happiness I used to see in Lisa's eyes. I saw Emma utterly enchant them throughout our day there. She informed them about school, her classmates, and her spell bee victory while showcasing her artwork. They paid attention to everything I said, and I noticed something unexpected. That night, when Emma talked joyfully about her grandparents on the way home, they looked at me with regret in their eyes. I made up my mind. Perhaps I was insane. I was determined to aid them, even if it meant putting myself at danger of additional harm. The next day, I phoned my real estate agent and planned to rent out my flat again. I then gave my mother a call. "I will assist with debt payments." Before I could reconsider, I said, "Emma and I are moving in together. My apartment's rental revenue will be used to cover the loan balance. I'll assist with the expenses as well, but we must establish certain limits." On the other end, there was stillness. Then Mom burst into tears once again. "Thank you, Bella. Many thanks." Emma and I moved in within 2 weeks. I got a dishwasher that really worked, a washing machine that didn't sound like it was ready to blow up, and a beautiful refrigerator with an ice maker that Emma liked. Mom appeared really delighted to have us there, and Dad's back issues subsided once he was no longer required to wash dishes by hand. Over the following few months, life settled into an unexpectedly cozy rhythm. Despite my initial misgivings, I had to admit that it was pleasant to come downstairs to freshly made coffee and pancakes when Mom started preparing breakfast for everyone. She took me to school, helped her with her schoolwork, and even taught her how to bake, something I had never been able to do. Dad started working part-time. With less physical exertion, his persistent back pain is finally improving. He taught Emma how to play chess, something I had never learned, and they started playing every week. Knowing Emma was properly taken care of made me want to work more hours at the office. One day, I was called into my boss's office by Miss S. Thompson. "Recently, we've noticed that you've been more dedicated. If you were promoted, how would you feel?" In addition to increased pay, the new role came with extra responsibilities, such as frequent business travel to neighboring states. I would have declined it right away in the past. No network of support. Single mother. It wouldn't have been successful. I was surprised at how confident I felt the first time I had to leave on a work trip, but I thought, now I'll take it. I felt quite anxious. It seemed like an eternity to spend 3 days in Chicago. "She will be all right." I must have said that 100 times. She was too. Mom emailed me photos of Emma playing with Dad, eating supper, and completing her schoolwork. It was successful. Everything went smoothly. However, there were times I was concerned about little things. For example, when Mom would get calls from Lisa, she would go into her room and come out with red eyes. Or when I was configuring Mom's new tablet and noticed bank transfer alerts on her phone, funds being sent to Lisa's account. Sometimes she needs assistance. When I questioned Mom about it, she defended herself. "She and Tom are going through a difficult time. I'm covering Lisa's loan default as well as all of your payments, Mom. You're sending her money, so how is that fair? You're not understanding." Mom became protective and snapped. "Tom's company failure is not Lisa's fault. She needs to provide for her 2 kids. I also have a single child, and all of your expenses to pay." Mom had already turned away, ending the conversation as she normally did with Lisa, but I fired back. I made an effort to disregard these disputes, but they got increasingly frequent. Emma was pleased with my professional progress, and on most days, it seemed like we were mending old wounds. After a few glasses of wine one evening, Dad even expressed regret for what had happened to my education fund. He looked into his drink and replied, "We made mistakes, large ones. After postponing that talk for 18 years, I wanted to say more." Mom swiftly shifted the conversation to Emma's impending school play, though. Here, 3 years go by. Emma seemed more mature every day when she reached 12. I adapted to my new job, which required me to travel every few weeks, but I always returned home to a contented kid. The loan payments were consistent. Life was solid and the bills were paid. Then, that Tuesday night arrived. I recall it being Tuesday as I wanted to surprise Emma and had just finished a large business in Phoenix, so I took an early trip home. Voices were coming from the driveway. There are too many voices. Spread out on my parents' couch, I opened the front door and into the ruckus. Lisa was the one I just had seriously holstered last month, and there were 2 children next to her. I had never seen my niece and nephew, but I knew them from pictures. Lisa was typing on her phone and hardly looking up as I walked in, and there were suitcases strewn all over the living room. "Oh," she responded, clearly indicating that I was interrupting her. "Take a look at this person." I suddenly realized that everything was about to alter once more. This time, though, I wasn't so impressionable at 18, and I wasn't going to let the past to happen again. Lisa spoke languidly from the couch. I left Tom, as though she were making a weather-related remark. "He is a total failure. I'm going to stay here now." Trying to take in what I was hearing, I stood there with my work bag still in hand. Sitting in their normal recliners, my parents looked everywhere but at me. My niece Anna, who is 10 years old, and my nephew Michael, who is 6 years old, were splayed out on the floor, using their tablets to watch television. "This is where you'll be staying. In the house where I pay all of the bills and the loan that you defaulted on," I slowly repeated. Lisa's cheeks turned crimson. "Well, let's get started. Miss Perfect is flawless in both her career and finances. Bella, some of us really do have difficulties. Real issues." My blood pressure started to rise, such as taking out a sizable debt in our parents' names and then failing to make payments. "That sort of issue." "Please, girls." Mom eventually found her voice and interrupted. "We are related. In times like these, we must stand together." I gave a hard chuckle. It's funny how, in times of need, family becomes crucial. When you handed away my college fund, where was the sense of family? Or the time you failed to extend an invitation to Lisa's wedding? Mom said, "That was years ago. Why are you unable to let it go? Right now, your sister needs us." The following 2 weeks were stressful. Lisa spent the day watching TV and sending texts while spread out on the couch. Her children made messes they never cleaned up as they raced around the home. However, the way my parents changed was what truly affected me. Emma was suddenly out of their line of sight. Mom just waved her away when she attempted to exhibit her math test results, on which she had an A, far too preoccupied to assist Michael with his video game. Just before Emma spent 2 hours playing catch with Anna in the backyard, Dad stated he was too exhausted to play chess with her every week. One night after Emma went to bed, I went up to Mom and confronted her. "What's happening? Why are you acting differently toward Emma?" "Avoid being absurd." Mom brushed me off. "Emma is older. She doesn't require as much care. Michael and Anna are younger. At this time, they require extra assistance." "Assistance?" "Emma is 12. She also requires her grandparents." But by the time Lisa called for more nibbles, Mom had already turned away. 2 months passed slowly. To avoid staying at home, I poured myself into my job and took on extra assignments. My folks seemed okay with Lisa not looking for a job yet. They always stood up for her when I brought it up. Dad might say she's going through a tough moment. She must consider the children. Mom would also contribute. I continued to pay for everything in the interim. The food, the bills, and the loan all seemed to go twice as quickly these days. But I wasn't really worried by money. It was witnessing Emma turn into a living ghost in her own house. Then Wednesday arrived. In the hopes of taking Emma out for ice cream, I had arrived home early, our little haven. When the situation at home became too stressful, before I even opened the front door, I heard the yelling. "You are a brat, sluggish, and useless." The home reverberated with Lisa's voice. "Take a look at this disaster. Now clean it up." When I hurried inside, Emma was on her knees gathering up stray toys, and Lisa was hovering over her. Toys that I knew belonged to Michael. "What's happening?" I insisted. Lisa spit out, "Your precious princess won't help around the house. Cleaning up after her relatives is something she believes she's too skilled at. Following her cousins?" I took another look at the toys. "Do you mean your children's mess? By the way, where are they?" "They are taking a snooze. This house needs to be maintained by someone. I'm always at work. Thus, I'm never here because you're never here." I blew up. In contrast to others who spend their days lying around and hoping for help from others, the ensuing debate was heated. Lisa sobbed as she raced to her parents, who supported her and told them that I was purchasing her. Naturally, they sided with her. Lisa's children begged Bella to be more understanding, Mom. "How about my kid? I cut you off. How about Emma?" However, they did not respond. When it came to picking between Lisa and myself, they never did. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I thought that was horrible. I had to take a plane to Seattle the next week to attend an urgent customer meeting. The intended duration was just 5 days. "You'll be all right?" At breakfast, I asked Emma for the umpteenth time. "Mom, I'll be all right." She tried to smile as she reassured me. "My phone is with me. Every night, we can video chat." I'm 4 days into my journey, approximately 9 p.m. My phone rang, Seattle time. The screen showed Emma's photo. "Mom." Her sobbing punctuated her little voice. "Mom, I'm outdoors. I was expelled by Aunt Lisa." I said, she said. "I was in the way," she said. "All I have is my phone. I had no idea what to do." The globe ceased to revolve. At night, my 12-year-old daughter was by herself on the street. I dialed my friend Sarah, who lived close by, with trembling hands. "Please," the first pleaded. "Are you able to come get Emma? She is outside the home of my parents." I then gave Lisa a call. Sounding irritated, she responded on the 6th ring. "Did the princess give you a call?" She gave a smirk. Perhaps she will learn to be less stubborn now. Arguments are constant. She always believes she is superior than everyone else. After hanging up, I dialed my parents. Mom replied. "The street is where your granddaughter is." My voice was frigid as I spoke. "Were you aware of that? Did you see her being thrown out by Lisa?" After a break, Mom's voice became stern. "Perhaps. Bella, perhaps this is a better option. Perhaps you should move somewhere else with Emma. You no longer truly belong here." Everything became quite evident in that instant. There are certain things that never change. There are certain people who never change. "You're right, Mom," I muttered. "There, we don't belong. We didn't." After hanging up, I scheduled the first flight back home. The cycle needed to be broken for good. I had the longest 5 hours of my life on the journey home. Every 30 minutes, Sarah updated me about Emma. But until I could embrace my daughter, I couldn't sleep. Emma was sleeping on the couch with tears still visible on her cheeks when I arrived to Sarah's place at 3 in the morning. She explained what had transpired. I caressed Emma's hair as Sarah murmured, "It's worse than you think, Bella." Emma claims that for weeks, Lisa had been treating her like a servant, having her wash the laundry, cook for Lisa's children, and clean the house. Emma eventually confronted her, stating that she needed to prepare for an exam. Lisa snapped, "Leave now!" Lisa had cried out, "Leave my house! This isn't your home!" Emma had answered, "Everything is paid for by my mom." At that point, Emma was forcibly pushed toward the door by Lisa, who took hold of her arm. My parents were present when it occurred. They did nothing except watch. After letting Emma sleep, I called my rental agency first thing in the morning to explain the issue and request their assistance in allowing me to terminate the existing tenant's agreement early. I then went to my lawyer to inquire about my rights with relation to the furnishings and appliances I purchased for my parents' home, and lastly, to a moving firm. I took Emma to her favorite eatery for breakfast the next morning. As I watched her pick at her pancakes, as she had done previously, I said, "Baby, I need you to be honest with me. Have you ever been harmed by Lisa?" Emma. The silence told me everything. I was spoiled, she remarked. At last, Emma muttered that I felt superior to her children. Grandma also mentioned that I needed to figure out where I fit in. I held my coffee cup with a trembling hand. "How come you didn't tell me, since you appeared content?" Emma said as she gazed up at me with those sage eyes that occasionally made me forget she was just 12. You were grinning more. Additionally, when Aunt Lisa wasn't around, Grandma and Grandpa occasionally showed kindness. I grabbed her hand from the other side of the table. Emma, pay attention. Nothing. You are the most important thing in the world to me. Not their home, not my parents. None of it. This time, we're staying in our apartment when we get home. We took a car to my folks' place after breakfast. Lisa's car was gone, most likely on one of her enigmatic errands, which never appeared to have anything to do with looking for a job. When Mom spotted me, a look of astonishment crossed her face as she opened the door. Bella, we were surprised that you returned so quickly. With Emma's hand firmly in mine, I moved past her silently. Outside, my hired moving crew was already waiting. Take everything I purchased. I gave them instructions for the TV, the new couch, the dishwasher, the washing machine, and the refrigerator. I pointed out everything I had bought in the last 3 years as I went around the house. This is not possible. Mom's voice became frantic. We require those items. I can, in fact. I calmly responded and gave the movers my receipts for every item I had purchased. I own them. While the movers were at work, Dad arrived home. As they disassembled the entertainment system I purchased last Christmas, he watched from the doorway. He began, Bella, but I interrupted him. Don't. Just. Do you not observe Liza abandoning your granddaughter to the streets? Once more, you put Lisa before me. You also choose her over Emma this time. We're finished. However, the voice of the lone mother trembled. The invoices. I looked at both of them. You'll need to work that out for yourself. Similar to how I had to figure out college by myself. In the same way that Emma had to learn how to live after being evicted from her house at night. Think of this as my last payment. For every instance in which you put Lisa before me. The months that followed were intriguing. Lisa and my parents didn't give up easily. The very following day, the call began. Mom first, then Dad, and then Lisa. Then go back to your mother. Their voicemails ranged from irate charges to heartfelt entreaties. The texts included terrible images of their past due payments, pictures of Lisa's dejected children, and efforts at guilt-tripping about the possibility of losing the house. In an attempt to convince me otherwise, Mom even emailed me photos of my former bedroom. How about you respond to them? Emma inquired one evening as my phone rang with another message. We were enjoying a pizza together while taking in the sunset from the balcony of our flat. Now, without the burden of my parents' expectations, our flat felt different, smaller than their home, but nevertheless more roomy, I said, because we owe them nothing. Not responding at all is sometimes the wisest course of action. Emma nodded, understanding in her eyes. She acknowledged that she occasionally missed playing chess with her grandfather, but not the way they made me feel when Aunt Lisa arrived. I drew her in. If you'd like, we can arrange you chess instruction. Someone who will continue to play with you simply when your cousin shows there can teach you a lot. Months passed. I learned about my parents' circumstances through the family gossip. They had returned to full-time employment and were having difficulty making ends meet. Due to their inability to make loan payments, the bank threatened to foreclose. Lisa was still unemployed. I'm still whining to anybody who will listen about me. Instead, I took Emma on weekend excursions using the money I had been using to pay my parents' expenses. Together, we went trekking, to theme parks, and to cooking lessons. I could spend more time with my kid and concentrate on my career if my parents' house wasn't always a drama. Without Lisa's children interfering with her study sessions, Emma's grades increased. She found new pals when she joined the school's chess club. She never begged to return, although I occasionally caught her glancing at old pictures from when we lived at my parents' house. I was preparing breakfast one Sunday morning, about a year after our departure, when Emma entered the kitchen with a contemplative expression. Are you pleased now, Mom? I gave it some serious thinking and stopped whisking the eggs. Was I content? I was relieved to have left a terrible atmosphere. I'm glad I kept my daughter safe. I was relieved to have finally overcome the habit of prioritizing Lisa. Yes, I am, I eventually said. Are you? I hadn't seen Emma's bright, carefree smile in years. Yes, I like it to be just the two of us. I removed all of my parents' phone numbers from my phone later that day. However, I saved their voicemails in a folder called Never Again. In case I ever began to question myself, a reminder of the reason we departed. My parents' home was eventually foreclosed by the bank, according to family members. It seems like Lisa found someone else to cheat on her new partner with when they moved into a little flat. I occasionally question if they ever truly realized what they did wrong, or whether they continue to convince themselves that I am the one who is selfish. To be honest, though, I no longer give a damn. Despite being a small family, Emma and I are a genuine one. We never have to feel guilty about taking up room in our own house. We can laugh when we want to and travel whenever we want. Emma's college fund now receives the money I used to pay my parents' expenses. And this time, no one will donate it to someone else's wedding.